I am live streaming as far as I know right now, and nothing makes me feel older than trying to set up a live stream. Honestly, this is an impromptu live stream as opposed to an unscheduled live stream, and what that means is that first of all, I don't know if anybody's watching, but second of all, it took me a bit to actually get on to get on. So if anybody's out there, please say hello. But I'm just gonna ramble for a few minutes about AI. Well, you're there. All right. This test gets an A. All right. I have no idea. There's probably 5 minutes of me messing around that may or may not have just been live of just me staring at the other screen. So good to see you all. I'm. This is not going to be a study session. This is sort of an unscheduled impromptu. I might do some. I see. Does his not realize? Oh no, it's okay. So this is delayed. Well, I was trying. I'm trying something. Um, all right, so this is sort of twofold, threefold. I was going to talk a little bit about some AI stuff, which I find really interesting right now. I was going to maybe answer any sort of random Q&A stuff. And I probably won't keep this up for long because the real reason was that I use an AI first pass editor. And I have fallen off of my uploading schedule, which means that I don't have a recent video that I can use to say, like, I uploaded a recent video edited with this thing. So, wow, I see a lot of people. Hello, hi. So let me know in the chat if you saw me just sitting there looking at the screen doing this because, I was trying to figure out if it was working. It's annoying to me if I made the live stream private and then it's 5 minutes of public. Once I make it public, 5 minutes of like blah blah blah. Blah. But yeah, you got to do something to figure out if it's working. Um, I wonder. I bet some of the older linguists are better than me at this, or the older polyglots. I bet Steve Kaufman can live stream. Um, I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to ramble a little bit about AI stuff because I made a video a while ago about voice cloning using 11 Labs voice clones. And it's something that I didn't necessarily include everything that I could have. I actually called my mother. I made a soundboard and I called my mother and just played like my AI cloned voice audio to have a conversation with her. And because it came from my phone number and sounded enough like me, Alice says we saw you a bit. Okay, that's fine. Because it came from my phone number, it sounded enough like me. My mom was thought it was me. And she actually called back and was like, "Are you okay?" So she knew something was off, but she thought it was me. I have recently been approached by a company that does AI avatars, and they do stuff where like real time translation. So instead of being a polyglot who speaks a bunch of languages, you could just have AI translate your script, clone your voice, and then take your image and move your lips so it looks like you're actually speaking the target language that you don't know. So you have to trust the AI, but it's actually doing it. Now, I see. At first, I did post a video instead of a stream. I have to. I have to. I have to. Oh, thank you, Firefly, for telling me how long the delay is. Thank you, and Alice, thanks for telling me I posted a video instead of a stream. Yeah, I'm working on it. I'll delete a lot of this stuff, but like I said, it's for having something up to use as an AI editor token. I'm gaming the system. Don't tell them. So what was I saying? Oh, I was approached by a company that does AI avatars, which look very realistic. And now I'm seeing them everywhere, but it's like if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking for it, you may miss that the person who's talking is not a real person, and it's kind of mind blowing to me. One of the things is they're not great with like hands and gestures. They're pretty good, but they're not great. So they'll say something, and then like the eyebrows will move, but it's like not exactly related to the speech, or like their hands are moving, but it's I don't know. I think it does pass a Turing test because some of them are a little bit more human seeming than like Mark Zuckerberg, but it's very it's past being uncanny. It's you actually have to be paying attention to like how they blink and how they move and everything to figure out is this a real person, especially if it's like a small thing on the bottom of the screen. Where you have a little talking head at the bottom explaining something. I actually just saw a couple of videos that are like how to use our program for something else. It's a different sponsor that I'll be talking about later on. And they have an AI avatar. Because I'd been approached by this AI company, I was like, that looks like it might be an AI avatar. And I started looking for their, like that particular person. I found that it wasn't one. So one of the things you can do is train one. Like I could make one of me that just looks like me. And then I can do a voice clone with 11 labs. And I was thinking about doing this. So with this sponsor, it actually what messed me up is it wasn't until watching the end of the third like 2 minute video that I realized the voice was also AI. Because they said something like, you know, your language learning doesn't end just because you said goodbye, oh auf Wiedersehen, or au revoir. And I'm like, you are not a real person, because a real native English speaker might not pronounce auf Wiedersehen correctly, but they're going to say like auf Wiedersehen or something like that. It's not going to be like oh auf Wiedersehen. But it took like 3 videos before I was like, wait, the voice is fake too. So I was thinking about this. There's a danger here, but I want to know what people think about this. I was thinking about making a second channel that I'm going to call Language Clones, and it will be ChatGPT scripts, a AI avatar of myself, digital voice clone, and make language and linguistics videos, and then might set them off by every 2 weeks, and then in the interim weeks we'll do a live stream and watch it maybe for the first time, and talk about what it gets wrong, where it is misinformation, where it is incorrect, and how we can start to recognize some of these things as we see them. Because I think this kind of mis and disinformation, a lot of times it's not even misinformation and disinformation, it's just like AI garbage in, garbage out, right? Like I did a thing with ChatGPT recently where I asked it to describe historical linguistics phenomena for me. Many of them it defined correctly, and then it gave examples that were, plausibly words following other words that make sense, but they were wrong. Like the factual elements of the examples were incorrect. So I'm thinking about doing something like this as like a cautionary thing. Like here's how it looks. Here's how it seems realistic. The danger is, of course, to have my voice and face saying things that are untrue because ChatGPT thought they sounded like reasonable things. Zen Kaisen said that would be absolutely terrifying. I'm terrified by it, but I also think it's worth like really digging into, and I think I can on the channel, and it would be hopefully helpful for misinformation, disinformation, and I don't even know what you call the kind of information that just comes from AI being incorrect about stuff, but it looks human, sounds human, and is very confidently presented. But whatever that is, so I'm thinking about that. The danger, like I said, is of course having my image and voice saying things that are untrue. So I may have to actually watch the videos first and then like stamp them with stuff where like this is false. But yeah, I mean, I use an AI first pass editor. It's actually coming up with video ideas for me. It's like, here's some video ideas, and they look pretty good. So it's like it's wild how much of the creator economy is now this. Especially thinking about voiceover artists and that kind of thing. Like that's going to be a really serious challenge for that field at this point, because why have a voiceover artist when you can have a sample of somebody's voice and just make the computer do it? If it doesn't matter to you if they say things like auf Wiedersehen and au revoir passably in English, then you're fine. Alice says, personally, I feel like that would be better as its own video or series. You'd watch the debunking ones, but not the AI ones. I don't know who would watch the AI ones. I think there's two things here. One is, I think most people on my channel would watch the debunking ones. As a separate channel, I don't know who would watch it, who would subscribe, but I also have a feeling a lot of people would. And that it's kind of an experiment where I'm curious. And maybe it's not people, maybe it's bots. I have no idea, but who knows? Like I'm just curious how many subscribers Language Clones would get, and what the crossover would be. I think I might even be able to check like the subscriber lists and see who's subscribed and who's not. So it might be an interesting thing to do. Like I said, this video is mostly like I'm using AI First Pass Editor, and I wanted to have something up. So I figured I would talk about this because as I'm digging into this stuff, I was kind of shocked and horrified by it 6 months or a year ago when I made the video about language clones. And you can tell because it's not a great video. It's kind of um, wonky because I'm trying to figure out, well, how do we figure out how this breaks? Like I did this in Prot and I compared its vowels and I did this and that and the other. And, can we tell this thing apart, this monster apart from me? And I also left out certain sounds. Like I think I left out anything that would be indicative of the pen-pen merger. I generally, if I'm not speaking carefully, do have the pen-pen merger. So I'll say like pen and pen. So that was something that like it does some weird stuff with low back vowels and mergers, but it's. I'm thinking about this. And I think it's nice to see some thoughts here. Easy the Goat said I sent you an email about a week ago. I think I received it. I'm a little behind on everything, so there's some family stuff going on, which is why I haven't released a lot of videos. And there's some other stuff coming up, including a lot of days that I won't be working for about a week. And so I'm trying to catch up on all that. But I do see you. I do try to respond to a lot of the videos. I mean, videos, a lot of the emails that I get. But I'm a little slow in responding to those, especially if it's not something that helps me pay the rent. But I will get there, I promise. The other thing that I was thinking about, I'm curious everybody's thoughts, just those of you who are here. I have been discussing writing a book with a friend of mine who I met this guy at a house party in Harlem, and he is a Juilliard trained actor, black actor from Philadelphia, playwright. He's won a ton of awards for his plays. And he was really interested in my dissertation looking at regional variation in African American English accents, in part because if you watch TV and movies, what happens is black people are cast as just having a black voice, and there's no further thought given to it. So if you are black and you are an actor, you could be from Atlanta and playing a character from, I don't know, Los Angeles, from New York, and just whatever your accent is, they're like, well, it sounds black. And that's not great. That's not accurate. Like I could never get away with that as like, playing, I don't know, a Scotsman, and they say, well, you're white, you sound white, so that's good enough. So I spoke with him, and there's another dialect coach who does a lot of work around this, and we're thinking about writing a book on black accents, specifically for like stage and screen and everything else, like television. But I was thinking about doing like accent breakdowns, and I was just wondering if there's interest in that, like looking at this across languages. I see a hi from Daniel. Hello back. Oh, it's us the go. Okay, it's Ein sein the goat. Okay, see, easy the goat. It's okay. Sorry, I'm reading the chat, of course. So I was thinking about doing videos of accent breakdowns, and it would not just be Black Americans, but it would be sort of everybody. But like going through lexical sets, going through what makes an accent an accent. So I could talk about Tina Fey and like a Philadelphia accent. I could talk about Ryan Coogler and an Oakland accent. But like what really makes these things what they are, what the stereotypes are about them, and then what the actual accents are. So, we could even talk about like Mike Myers and Canadian accents. But that's something that I was thinking about, and let me know in the chat if that's something you all would be interested in. I'm really trying to figure out some kind of new directions for the channel as I start to scale up a little bit and have a little bit more time and freedom and availability to do this stuff. And as I'm getting better, but not great at live streams. You're going to get a lot of me like making faces at the camera and scratching my head, I guess, while I'm trying to figure out, is this thing on? Which is, for some of you, you'll remember this, my first live stream was, is this thing on? Uh-oh, it is. So, it's, I don't know, I'm an elder millennial, and it's like, I just, different stage of life. It just, I'm understanding the boomers who are like, I don't understand this phone. That's me with live streaming now. Hope says that would be a great video topic, so I think I'm gonna do it. As not as. Yeah, thank you, Rami. I heard it when I said it, because as would be like Aleph sign, and it's like an interjection. I was like, that can't be right, but I was saying something else. So that's sort of what I want to talk about today. Are there Since I'm here, are there any specific like burning linguistics questions that you think I might be able to answer? If it's like, really deep into, generative syntax, maybe I can't answer it. But a lot of times I find people are like, "Hey, I noticed this thing and I was wondering about it," and it's usually something that I can answer pretty quickly and be like, "Oh, that's because," and then it'll be like, I don't know, the Norman invasion in 1066, or the shape of the tongue encourages us to actually move this vowel towards that vowel. So I see a quick question. Have I made any videos mapping the British sounds with IPA? I have not, and that sounds like a really good topic for kind of that series that I was thinking about doing something around accents. So I think I mentioned in a short once lexical sets and Wells's lexical sets, where he talks about how to really characterize an accent. And then I haven't really done much with that because I wanted to make sure that everything was perfect, and that's how I end up not making videos. So I think I'll do that. I'll do that. There's a lot of different British accents. So if you're thinking British sounds with the IPA, I assume you mean like, how the IPA kind of privileges a sort of British way of doing things, but also some of the sounds like that we don't necessarily like, oh, that we don't necessarily have in American English. So yeah, I'll add that to my video ideation list. What I'm trying to do right now is have a list of video ideas that I can arrange in a hierarchy of like, is it easier? Is it harder? How much time will it take? What kind of interest do I think there will be for it? So is it going to be something that everybody wants to watch, or is it going to be something that like only a small subset of the viewers want to watch? Or is it going to be something that I just want to say and have out there on record, and who cares if anybody watches it? And then try to balance those so I don't have my videos just be like, you know, a month of weekly video drops where it's just something that nobody cares about. Or just constantly, here's what the AI says that people are going to be most likely to click on. I want to strike a balance between those. I see. Do I agree that roticity is increasing in New Zealand English, specifically in Auckland? That is such a specific question. I have heard that. I've heard that claim made. I am not a specialist on New Zealand English, although I do love the sound of it. I have heard that claim made. I think I remember seeing an abstract at one of the N waves about that, but I don't know. It would not surprise me, and it seems like a very plausible change. I see. What's up, Jonesy? What's up? How's the Quebecois going? Ça va. We were gonna go up there for the eclipse, and then I actually taught a class at Georgetown last week. Was the eclipse last week? I taught a class at Georgetown, and another class at the Navy Yard in DC, and so it was just too much to drive to Montreal, which was the original plan to meet up with some of our friends from Ottawa. We all just go to Montreal. But I didn't make it, so I eased up on the Quebec French because I was thinking that'd make a pretty fun video. At some point, we're gonna go back up there, and I'll make a video and talk to people. And it's still going. What I've been doing is listening to a lot of it. I have a lot of like a shocking amount of Quebec stuff is now advertised to me on my Instagram. And so like a lot of my shorts, YouTube shorts and whatever else, like, I don't do TikTok, but Instagram, all that stuff, it all bleeds over. A lot of that is in Quebec French, and that's my like listening practice, that and podcasts. I see a few more questions, and then I'll wrap up so I can actually edit this video, get a video out this week and a video out next week. Let's see. Do I know of any books that are good at explaining the basics of linguistics to the average person? I do. In the fall, I was planning on starting a linguistics for normal people class, or linguistics for regular people class, average person. I don't know. I'll workshop the name. And I was going to use a book. It's available on Amazon. I think I have an affiliate link somewhere, but where is it on my shelf? Yeah, Introducing Linguistics. It's Routledge. It's all the way on the top of my shelf back there, so I don't know if you can see it. I think it's Culpepper et al. And it's just a really, really fun, good introduction. It's actually sort of theory agnostic in terms of syntax. So you get a little bit of like Chomsky and generative syntax. You also get some other approaches that I'm less familiar with. And I was going to use that as the sort of textbook. So if people wanted to get it, read along, study along. I wasn't sure if I was going to do videos or live streams. I didn't feel like making it gated, like Patreon only kind of thing. So I was going to make it like a regular thing. I think live stream's probably the best way to do that. And that was my plan for the fall. Maybe like the fall around when the semester is, but if not, sometime starting this year. But that is, I'll just grab it. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. This book, Introducing Linguistics, edited by Jonathan Culpepper, Beth Mallory, Claire Nance, Daniel Van Olman, Dimitrinka Atanasova, Sam Kirkham, and Aina Kaspona. So, Introducing Linguistics, Routledge, edited. First editor is Culpepper, and it is a 2023 publication. I have skimmed through most of it, and it looks really good. I think it's good for teaching, and it's a good introductory textbook. The other ones that people use in linguistics classes are like language files from Ohio State University, and that's like huge and stupidly expensive, and I don't think it's better than this. So that's that. Let's see. I have some more questions. I love that. I'm gonna do more Q&As. Okay. So that was Fabled Frodo, or Fab Led Frodo, right? Fabulously led. Hope. How come the direction of language is written in changes from language to language? Oh, that's a really good question. So I don't do a lot of writing stuff, but the materials have an impact on that as writing is developed. So writing, most alphabetic writing systems derive from the one Phoenician alphabet, which is kind of a cool history. But depending on the materials that you use, that's going to affect how you write. So cuneiform, if you're writing with a little clay tablet, that can be, the materials will affect it. If you're chiseling something into stone, it may be easier to go right to left. If you're writing on papyrus, so it's handedness and the tools that are at your disposal, and that'll affect also the shape of the letters and that kind of thing. That said, it's not a hard and fast rule. So like the Greeks used to write with all sorts of different ways. They could write in spirals. They might write a line that goes this way, and then a line that goes that way, and then a line that goes this way. So it's not locked in, and languages have changed their writing systems over time. So if you look at Persian, they've gone from cuneiform to a sort of descendant of the Phoenician script that looks really cool, to Arabic script, to Cyrillic in parts of the world right now. So there's a lot that can affect that. Let's see. Tianrun Chang. I don't know the tones for that, but hello. First time catching a stream. My channel got you excited to pick a new language. You're learning German. That's great to hear. I'm trying to think of how to say congratulations in German, and all I could think of was Dutch. Where I'm like felicitiert. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's great to hear. I love it. Keep me updated. Let me know how it goes. I lived in Germany as a child for a few years, and I can passively understand a fair amount, but I don't speak it. I may at one point go back to it. All right, I'm going to go down through Capricious Computers comment here, and then I will wrap up because I'm having fun, but I actually do have to edit. Okay, Theo, I'll answer yours too. That came in just after I said that. So Daniel says, I find it confusing to annotate British sounds with IPA, KK and DJ phonetic systems. It'll be very helpful. Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the sounds, I mean, the IPA stuff, I made one video about the consonants. I did a live stream about the vowels because the video editing for consonants almost killed me. It was so much video editing, and you can't outsource it because people, like all the people that I could outsource it to for like, cheap, fast video editing, they don't necessarily know the IPA. So I got to do it all myself. So I'll definitely go into that. I see JDA940. I think videos about regional accents and the slang that goes along could be very interesting, even if it only goes over U.S. areas. I was thinking a little broader, but I'll definitely do that. One of the things that's interesting, too, is segregation in the U.S. means that, we talk about something like a New York accent or a Philadelphia accent. There's more than one. Philadelphia, for instance, 44% white, 44% black, and the rest is like everything else, with a lot of like Cambodian and Vietnamese represented there. And the white accent and the black accent are very different. So, people talk about a Philadelphia accent, and that's like, Tina Fey on SNL doing her Philadelphia accent, where she's saying things like fight and night and, house and all that kind of stuff. Um, but I remember like one of the black actors on SNL imitating that accent. They had something like when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, um, which honestly, Eagles in the Super Bowl is like every vowel is a Philadelphia vowel there. I Philadelphians, I apologize. I know it's not all the way there. It's not all the way authentic, but I'm doing my best. But anyway, one of the black actors tried to do that accent, and that's not what a black Philadelphia accent sounds like. Kevin Hart is what a black Philadelphia accent sounds like, and it's very specific compared to a black New York accent, a black DC accent. So there's some interesting stuff there. Capricious computer, what conditions make it more or less likely for accents to appear / develop where there used to be uniformity? Babies. Babies do. Humans just do that. It's a mess. So it's a large dynamical system in which you have not uniform generations. It's not like everybody has a baby at the same time. And then they're all interacting in ways that's like not super predictable and in many ways very random. And then children introduce slight changes and errors. And then we also pick up on like who sounds cool to us or who doesn't, which is usually like in an American context, well, in many contexts, women lead language change. And it's like girls in school kind of doing what the cooler older girls do, and then they lead language change by about a generation. So I've noticed this as I got older. So I'm almost 40 now. Young men, like 20-year-old men, straight men, sound to me like 40-year-old women. It is wild. And it's like, this is a well-established fact in like linguistic change, but nobody tells you like how it's going to feel and sound as you get older. And it's just a very bizarre thing. But what happens is geography, random errors introduced in childhood, phonetic and phonological pressures. So the shape of the mouth affects things. If you look at historical linguistics, and I'll talk about this in later videos, there's just pressures where certain sounds just consistently over time, maybe it's 100 years, maybe it's 1,000 years, this sound's going to turn into that sound. So like k sounds, especially if they're followed by like a e or a or e, become kya, become cha. That's how you get words like church in English versus kirk in other Germanic languages. They've held on to that, but there's that always that sort of slight pressure in the system. And then as people are in different places, that creates sort of random changes as well that can propagate through a speech community. So people used to think that radio and television would sort of standardize how everybody speaks. And it has not happened. And same thing with the internet, with like social media. It's not happening. Accents are diverging. And so one big finding of my advisor in grad school, who's Bill Labov, he found that the northern cities shift is like he was one of the people who helped describe what's called the northern cities vowel shift. They thought, radio and television is going to make everything kind of homogenized. And it turns out that like in the last century, you have this dramatic shift in the vowels among white speakers in northern cities in the U.S. So that's Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Chicago, Detroit. If you think, I'm always going back to SNL, but if you think about like, the Bears, like that kind of accent, where it's like, riding the boss to my job. And it's a terrible stereotype of it, but it's a good enough exaggeration that you understand what I'm saying. That's something that developed recently after television, after radio, and it's because children actually acquire the language from the people around them. It doesn't matter what somebody on TV is saying. There's something more sort of powerful and elemental about like interacting with other people. And you have all of these elements of random drift that can create sort of changes in the system, and you have all these sort of pressures. So a lot of how I think about linguistics and language change, and how I'm hoping to publish a little bit more, is around evolutionary game theory. The models that we have for the evolution of species are actually really good for language variation and change. And so it's all math, it's all dynamical systems, but a lot of it can be explained by drift. I see another question. Hopefully that answered your question. How come written French is so complex and convoluted, but oral French makes more sense phonetically? Um, the answer for written French is that it is written the way that it was pronounced a few hundred years ago, and that French, for whatever reason, has had like way more vowel changes and sound shifts than a lot of other languages in the same time frame. So I remember Don Renge, who's a professor of historical linguistics at Penn, was talking about language changes in French, and you could kind of reconstruct from the spelling, you could figure out a pathway of like how you get from this in the 1600s to this in the present day. And you'd be like, this change to this change to this change to this change. And you have like 5 changes, and then you get, moi from moi. Um, but then he was like, interestingly, like we know what actually happened, and it was way more changes. Like it was this circuitous route where it was like 20 changes instead of 5. So it's just kind of an interesting history there. I love seeing spoken French in the IPA because it looks like a completely different language. Um, the challenge there is, of course, you can't recognize any of the words and their relationship to English or their relationship to Latin or Greek or whatever it is. Um, I'll answer a few more. Ever since I mentioned about the disappearing H sound, you hear it everywhere. I'll do that. I should make a video about the fabulous disappearing H, and S becomes H. This is what I mean about historical linguistics, where it's like S's become H's. They can become other sounds. They do become other sounds, but in general, it's more likely to become an H, and an H is more likely to disappear. T's, they might become S's. They might become glottal stops. If it becomes a glottal stop, it's going to disappear. If it becomes an S, it's going to become an H. It's going to disappear. Like everything has this kind of pressure on it. All right. As a young boy, it sounds like older women. It sounds to me like sons getting their accent from their moms. Exactly. Their moms and or various caretakers. It could be whoever's the teachers. And this is also because of like sort of gendered occupations in our society as well. So a lot of young men to me sound like not just women my age or older, but like kindergarten teachers my age or older. And of course they do. What I learned is sitting Indian style, which I now call cross-legged. I have heard adult men referred to as crisscross applesauce. In all seriousness, that's an extreme example with the words as opposed to the accent. But in general, we find that women lead accent change by about a generation. Okay. From Syracuse, so that specific example is cool to hear. The Northern City shift is great, and they did gated perception studies where they actually play people a specific word, and they say, what word did you hear? And then even people from the Northern cities think it's a slightly different word than it actually was. So the one that I use a lot in teaching, I'm just going to say it instead of playing you the audio, but it's better with the audio, just know that, is they'll play audio and somebody says, block, and they say, what word did you hear? I just did it wrong. I just did it completely wrong. I gave away the whole story. So they say black. They say black. And people are like, oh, it's like the color. And then they say, okay, on the black. And people are like, I don't know, are they like playing roulette or something? And then it was like, the old people who live on the black. And it's the northern cities vouching for people, even in the north, heard it as the color first, and then later like, oh, on the black where I live. People in the South still were like, what is going on here? And similarly, you can do this with Southern accents and so on. Like I love playing gated perception examples. I'll make a video about that because I think it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I remember talking about the bosses, and people were like, oh, like at your job. And they're like, the bosses with the antennas on top. And people are like, sorry, I don't think I know what they're talking about. And it's like, I used to remember riding the buses with the antennas on top. It was like, oh, it's buses in other accents. Okay. Caprice Computer almost used the word speciation in your question. It is basically that once you get to different languages. And David, good to see you. Everything disappears in the end. Yes. Very, very sort of Kohelet, right? Very, what do they call that in the Greek? Is that I don't remember what they call them in Greek. It's one of the boys. Everything is vanity and emptiness and nothingness. I see. Oh, I was gonna go, but Daniel says other possible topics for video making, and now I have to wait and see what that is. I assume you're typing. I'll have another sip of my coffee. By the way, the one that's coming out this week, I'm going to talk about accents and how to learn them, and the fact that I'm just deeply annoyed by language teaching, saying like if you want to learn, Argentinian Spanish, then what you should do is just learn generic Latin American Spanish and then learn the differences. I find that annoying. I do have a sponsorship from Lingoda on that. I'll try to add a little bar for you all, so you don't have to watch the ad if you don't want to, but it does help me. And then one next week about transliteration and matzah in particular, where that O comes from in words like matzah and kosher, which is not from the Hebrew per se. Okay, one, how to understand the explanations when looking up words in etymology dictionaries. That's a tall order. I could do a short on that or something. And Walter says, thank you for your knowledge about Auckland English. I wish I had more, but yeah. Daniel, I'm gonna sit here for a moment. Let's type faster because one implies two. This is high context communication here. By the way, I'm starting a new channel this year with a colleague of mine at Culture Point, which is the consulting firm that I work with. And we're going to talk about culture and language and communication and conflict in the workplace. It's going to be a lot of fun. So diplomacy, all sorts of good stuff. But the idea, we're going to talk about like high and low context, direct versus indirect communication, positive and negative orientations towards face. We're going to talk about how culture and unconscious bias relate to one another, how those play out in the workplace, and how to get ahead of conflict by understanding culture. Even if you live in a relatively homogeneous society, how you can go about figuring out what these cultural differences are that people have and assumptions are that people have around communication, because everybody has their own preferences and we all kind of assume that everybody else shares those preferences, and very often that's not the case. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're launching a podcast. It should be videos on YouTube as well as podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. We're laying all the foundation for that right now, and it is going to be a delight because if you like me, you're going to love Christopher Hall, who's my colleague and friend. All right, two, how to learn Latin and Greek prefixes, roots, and suffixes efficiently to learn English. I like that. I'm copying and pasting and writing that down because I think that's something that a lot of people are probably curious about, and could be, I'm copying and pasting that into my notes. So that one I will absolutely, definitely do. The etymology dictionaries, I don't know. All right. I see. Listening to Stephen Fry's trilogy about Greek mythology, he talks about etymology from ancient Greek. Very interesting. Yeah, we can get into ancient Greek. Why not? I've been thinking about revisiting the classics education that I never got, and I have Latin and Greek books up on my shelf, and they can be a lot of fun. So yeah, we can dive into all of that stuff. I remember looking at ancient Greek, like a textbook for it, and seeing words like geront for like old person, and I'm like, oh, gerontology, like that's just transparently like the study of old, the study of the elderly. So there's a lot there where there is a pretty big influence in English. I see very interesting content in your new channel with a colleague. Let us know. I will absolutely be making crossover videos that way. I've been sitting on some of the stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I've been sitting on it so that we can actually make those videos there. Tianro asked what the podcast will be called. To the company's Culture Point. We were thinking Pop Culture Point because we're going to talk about pop culture. We're doing two things. We're going to be talking about all of that stuff: conflict, the drivers of conflict, and communication, and also looking at how this plays out in pop culture, because all of these skills around culture, around bias, around leadership and communication. Failure in some part there is what makes drama, and drama is what we all like to watch on television. So we were thinking about just taking shows, whether it's Star Trek, whether it's The Rookie, whether it's Dune Part 2, whether it's I'm trying to think of what's been released recently, The Gentleman on Netflix. I have no idea. And talking about which of these elements actually is the drivers of conflict in these scenarios. So it's going to be a lot of fun. David says you'd like to see me and Chris go to Romance language that neither of us knows together, or Latin now that we're talking about it. The only one that meets the bill that's a big one would be Romanche. But we could go for like something smaller, like Occitan or something. That could be fun. All right. I want to thank you all for your time. I'm going to slap a AI editing like a little thing in the description here once this is live, and I can finish up editing my video on dialects, accents, why just learning the rules of how this is different from that isn't enough to actually understand it. And yes, with a promotional tie-in there, but it is a product that I actually use. I'm gonna finish that up and get that hopefully launched this week. And I'm pleasantly surprised with the number of views for my impromptu live stream. So I might do this again just at random whenever I feel like it, and see how that goes. Thank you all for your time. I feel like you all like take time out of your day to